Well, hello there and welcome back to Cyboss TV. I'm Daisy McAndrew, and as they say, now for something completely different. We're going to be talking about platform thinking, and to tell me and you all about it, I'm delighted to have been joined by Sangeet Paul Chowdhury and your own company as Platform Thinking Labs. Welcome to the program.
Thank you, Daisy.
Tell us what we mean by platform thinking.
I think of two different approaches to business design. The first is what I call pipes, which is what we've been familiar with, which is a very linear approach to business design. If you think of supply chains, the traditional manufacturing model, it works in a very linear fashion. There's a producer of value on one side and there's a consumer on the other side. Traditional media has worked in a very linear fashion. What we're seeing in a networked age is this linear model is breaking down, and we're seeing the rise of a more networked model of value creation. And that's what I call a platform. What a platform does is, instead of creating the value, it acts as an infrastructure and governs the conditions that allow others external to the company to come in and create value, and others external to the company to come in and consume value. An example of that would be a traditional pipe model would be a television channel, for example, which works in a very linear fashion. YouTube works in a very networked fashion, a platform fashion. Hotels work in a very linear fashion. If they have to expand, they have to open more hotels and open more rooms, whereas Airbnb works in a very networked platform fashion. And closer home to banking, banks work in a linear fashion.
So just in case people don't know what Airbnb, that's people exchanging their homes. You come and stay in my flat and I'll go and stay in your flat.
Absolutely, yes.
So is that what people call the shared economy or peer-to-peer? Is that similar or?
Yes, the shared economy is just one aspect of how platforms are changing things. If you think of the shared economy, you're essentially saying, you're essentially redefining who can run a taxi or who can open a hotel. But if you take this a few years back, social media was asking the question who can run a media house or who can run a news company, and it again had the same design. Taking this forward, with the rise of 3D printing, we're seeing the same thing happening to manufacturing. Who can be a manufacturer? With the rise of the Internet of Things, we are seeing things coming onto platforms. So we're seeing this not just as a trend in a particular industry, we're seeing this happening across industries. And even in banking, something like Lending Club questions who can be a lender instead of just a traditional bank. Can peers be lenders? So that's how this trend is happening beyond the sharing economy.
And tell us specifically what Platform Thinking Labs does.
Specifically, Platform Thinking Labs is a research and executive advisory firm that works on understanding how these shifts are happening and how these can be applied to different industries, and leveraging insights from Industry X, it applies the same economic principles to Industry Y, and that's where the scale of thinking comes across industries.
And I know you had a session here at Cyboss yesterday. How did that go? What was the reaction to what you were saying?
The reaction was pretty good because it was a short talk about how to think in terms of platforms, because platforms can be fairly complex. You don't own value creation, you don't own quality control. There are new designs in which you create value and you control value, and essentially the core of my session was to lay out the three elements of a platform. Specifically, the first element is the actual network that gets created, and as the network increases, the value in the platform increases. Without the network, there's no value in the platform because all the value is created externally. The second is what we see, which is the technology of the platform. But frankly, without the network, the technology has no value. Think of Twitter without any users. It's just a software for 140 characters. And the third layer is the data layer that connects the right content with the right users and the right users with each other.
And taking it forward, I mean, what was the reaction as this particular industry? Is it receptive to platform thinking?
It is. What we see across industries is that the closer an industry is to information as a source of value, the easier it gets disrupted because of a platform. So the first two industries that got disrupted were media and telecom, because media information is the source of value. Telecom apps were the main source of value. Banking is again an information industry, as is healthcare and education. But banking, healthcare, and education are more resistant because the risks of participating in a transaction are that much higher than in media, and hence the regulation is that much higher. So there is reception. People do see startups coming in and trying to challenge the status quo, but because of the regulation, the fixed costs of just entering the industry and operating in it are too high at the moment.
Presumably over time, you would predict that would change.
Yes, I would expect that to change, because in a lot of industries, the move towards platforms is created by an increase in consumer choice. And that's what happens in, say, the hotel industry when Airbnb increased the consumer choice. Hotels are now being forced to participate in the sharing economy, per se.
It's sort of either join in or get left behind.
Absolutely.
Sort of mentality. And who do you think it would be typically that would get left behind? What type of company, what type of mentality would you think?
Sure. If we look at the kinds of companies that have been left behind, if you think of the publishing companies being left behind because of Amazon, typically companies that act as gatekeepers tend to get left behind because traditional gatekeepers were not scalable. The editorial function was never scalable, and it was not efficient. What platforms do is they, again, are gatekeepers, but they're a lot more scalable. Instead of depending on static signals of quality, platforms rely on a lot of data to determine what should be given out to the market and what should not be given out to the market. And so Amazon is criticized for continuing to be a gatekeeper, and a lot of new ebook writers continue to be lost in oblivion. But the fact remains that the parameters that decide what should go to the market has changed because of better use of data by platform enablers.
And I think you said that you had good reaction and people wanting to follow up with you. Typically, what do you think they are looking to get from you?
Typically, what I specifically help organizations with is architecting the platform. People understand how to build technology, but platforms are more than technology. It's about how do you create the network effect. When you launch something as a platform, the value is created externally. So initially, when you launch something, there is no value until users come in and start producing on the platform. And that's one of the biggest challenges. Beyond that, you have to keep a platform that keeps engaging users. You have to have a specific data strategy. You can't just say, we'll collect all the data and we'll see what we do with it. You need to know what kind of data you want to collect and what incentives you offer in exchange for that data. And finally, the most important part of running a platform is governance. You need to decide what kinds of users are allowed, what kinds of interactions are allowed. You don't want people who default on loans to keep coming back to the platform, for example, or even if they do, you want to have a way to curate them to reduce their access to future loans. So all of this forms part of the business architecture of the platform, and that's specifically what I help with.
Well, it's fascinating, and I will be watching the platforms in this space very, very carefully. Thank you so much. I'm Sandeep Paul Chowdhury from Platform Thinking Labs for explaining all of that to us, and best of luck with the company.
Thanks.
That's it from Sibos TV just for the moment. We'll be back a little bit later this morning with plenty more. Do stay tuned then. I'm Daisy McAndrew. Bye-bye.